So when we're looking at, if I was to propose this art in hand, which we had in a gallery, it was a for sale exhibition. Now I want it in a museum. So it's different. Right, so the International Folk Art Museum is an ideal venue for art in hand because that museum often displays works that might not have been viewed as art in their day, but can be appreciated as such in hindsight. And I could have included for their sculptural qualities. So why is it? So if I've got this as an exhibit, I mean, the chances of getting it at the Museum of Modern Art are stretching it. The Folk Art Museum, maybe even an outsider art museum, I might have a shot. But that, in one sentence, is the rationale. In many ways, you've heard of the who, what, where, when, why, and how. In journalism, in many ways, that's what you're doing in your proposal. You want a vision statement, too. This is often the heart and often the most difficult part of this proposal to package to write. What are you trying to accomplish? Why are you doing it? This is different than your curatorial statement because the curatorial statement is about you, your philosophy. Now you're talking about, with the vision statement, how your philosophy is activated in such a way that this exhibit is telling a story. So we're mounting this show to increase public awareness of the tools that shaped the history of this city, from private homes to public buildings. One sentence. And when it says statement, that's singular. That's not statements. One sentence. That's why it's so tough to write. You know what's amazing? There are some authors I have read who can say more in 26 words than some authors can in 26 pages. There are some guitarists who can say more with one note than other guitarists can say in a whole song. That's why it's the most difficult. You want to include what is the benefit, relevance, or need. How do the local as well as the surrounding communities benefit from having attended the exhibit? You've talked about how the venue, why it's an appropriate venue, and how that venue stands to benefit. How does this benefit the larger community now? Because that museum wants to know, how are we going to get the public in to see this? Because if the museum's going to help in the PR, public relations, advertising, press releases, and the like, they want to be able to know, how are we going to frame this in such a way that's going to make people want to come? It might be for this one. Did your grandfather use one of these tools? You want to provide a blurb about the artists and a list of the objects. Now in this case, with this show that we had, we didn't know who they were. So, putting it in a context, while the men and women who wielded these tools, wielded has an entirely different connotation, which is the emotional association we have to a word. I could have said men and women who used these tools. Wielded carries much more strength to it. It's a more active word. Are unknown, but we can still see and appreciate the results of their creative labor in many parts of Santa Fe. I could have said work, but they're making something that we can appreciate. It's creative. You want to talk about what the installation is going to be. You're going to actually describe the physical space that would be needed to house this exhibit. You will even include a diagram or a map if needed, and for your little installation, you'll get a little layout of the Primitive Edge Gallery, and you will notate how this exhibit would be hung with your 5 objects. You're all going to get a part of that gallery. You'll also explain that if you're going to hand deliver the work or if you're going to ship it, depending on the venue. Because if you've sold this to Las Cruces, it's going to be shipped. But it could easily be driven there by you too. Because if it's going to be shipped, what does that involve? Shipping cost. insurance. And shipping costs may be prohibitively expensive, particularly if you're in the same state, as compared to doing it yourself. There's still issues of accountability. But these are all factors that need to be considered in the budget. And then the installation then, if I'm talking about a description. The Art in Hand exhibit consists of 20 vintage hand tools no longer than 60 inches long and 24 inches wide. So I'm describing the physical space that the largest object would occupy. 11 of the tools will be mounted on the wall with prefabricated mounts. 5 of the tools will be mounted on prefabricated pedestals, and the remaining 4 tools will rest upon the gallery floor. The exhibition will require approximately 25 linear running feet if it was to run along one wall. Unless it's hung salon style. Salon means that it's actually going to be a more three-dimensional space where you've got length times width. Some people call it gallery style. The exhibit must be presented in its entirety. Now I'm even specifying. You can't just take 8 of these and 3 of these. All right, you've got to take the whole thing. We will hand deliver and can hang the show ourselves if you wish. That's one way to describe the installation. It's only a paragraph. Lighting. What kind of lighting do you envision? Is it going to be a dark area with spotlights? Or is it going to be something where it's kind of airy and diffusive and you've got a lot of floods? A spotlight does what? It focuses, as compared to floodlights, which are a much more diffuse, dispersed light. Or is it going to be natural light? Is it going to be bright and clean? You really want to consider lighting, because you may even discuss whether the lights are going to be from the ceiling pointed down as a flood, or are they going to be spotlights or a flood from the floor pointed up? They all create a different effect. So when we hung that sickle, what happens with painting? With light? Fading. Happens with textiles too. If you're doing jewelry, what do you need to be aware of? Tarnishing as a result of exposed to the elements, in particular humidity. Lighting with many objects is going to be important because of the need to conserve the object, the integrity of the object. So you want to describe the lighting that's going to be used. You also want to include a sample of the wall text. In other words, what is the descriptive copy that would be hanging next to an object that places it in an historical or contemporary context, or the artist in that context, but you also want a sample label. The catalog, because that wall text might be also catalog copy. And then that label may also be catalog copy. So if the text itself is a paragraph that summarizes the importance of that piece, and then the label is all of that other stuff evaporated out, so you've got the object, the artist or the maker if known, the media, the location, the year, dimensions, and provenance. Provenance, once again, the history of who owned that object. And this is one of the things that drives me crazy about a lot of Native American exhibits. You get the label. You very rarely get the wall text. And you walk out knowing no more about that person or that culture than you did when you walked in. All you knew is they carved a lot of stuff. You are going to include images. So you're going to explain the types of images that you have included in that proposal. You want to make sure the images are excellent quality. So a sample statement from a description of image. Enclosed in this proposal, please find 32 slides and a slide list. You will also find 32 color, 8.5 by 11 inch color prints of the tools. So they've got the slide, they've got the slide printed out, and then a DVD with JPEG images of the tools and a sample of the wall text and label copy for the Adobe brick frame.